Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today in our beginner series, I'm going to teach you guys how to make this crew neck baby sweater. Stay tuned. To make the sweatshirt, you're going to need two types of fabric. You're going to need a soft jersey type material, and you're also going to need a rib knit. The rib knit is going to allow for the neckband, the cuffs, and the waistband to stretch. The pattern we're using is by Easily Made Design. It's their crew neck sweatshirt pattern. I'm going to link it in the description box below. The first thing we're going to do is take our fabric and fold it in half, right sides together. I'm making a 2 to 3 year sweatshirt, so it takes about 3/4 of a yard of fabric. If you're making a different size, just follow the instructions from the pattern and it'll let you know how much fabric you need. After you folded your fabric, you're going to take your first pattern piece. This is the front pattern piece, and you're going to place it on that fold. The instructions call for you to cut it on the fold. That way it opens up and it's a full front piece of the sweatshirt. I'm tracing around the pattern using a disappearing ink marker, and then once I'm done tracing it, I'm going to take my fabric scissors and cut it out. I'm also using pattern weights to hold my pattern down so it doesn't shift when I'm tracing, but if you don't have pattern weights, you can use other things like washers or a cup, anything that's going to hold that pattern down. Once you're done tracing, you're going to take those pattern weights off, remove your pattern, and then place the weights back down. If you guys don't have anything to mark your fabric with, or the fabric's too dark to mark, you could always just cut around your pattern. You just have to make sure not to cut into the pattern. Once you're done cutting out that first piece, you're going to repeat the steps with the remaining pattern pieces. After everything's cut, this is how many pattern pieces you should have. Now it's time to construct the sweater. I'm using these clips instead of pins, but pins work just as well. This next step is to open up your pattern pieces that we cut out. This piece right here is the back piece. We're going to take that front piece, open it up as well, and then we're going to lay it right sides together on top of that back piece. Now we're going to sew the two pieces together at the shoulder seams. I'm using my serger to sew everything together, but if you don't have a serger, use your sewing machine. If you're using your sewing machine, just make sure to finish your seams using a zigzag stitch. Now that the shoulder seams are sewn together, I'm going to take those loose threads and tie them in a knot, then I'm going to snip them off. If you're using a sewing machine, this part isn't necessary, just make sure to trim your extra thread. Now that those threads are snipped, I'm going to iron the seams that I sewed. Ironing in between every step helps to make your projects look more professional. Now we're going to prep our sleeves. The first thing I do is I take the sleeves while they're still folded in half, and I make a little snip at the top and the bottom. This is going to help align those sleeves when we get ready to sew them on. The next step we're going to do is sew those sleeves on. So you want to open up that bodice we sewed together and lay it out flat on your surface. Next, you're going to open up that sleeve, and you see that slit that we opened? We're going to line that up with one of the shoulder seams. Once you line that up, you're going to add a clip or a pin there, and then you're going to clip the remainder of the sleeve to the rest of the bodice. After you've pinned that first sleeve, you're going to repeat the same step with the next sleeve. And then you're going to take it over to your sewing machine or your serger, and you're going to sew those sleeves on. After those sleeves are sewn on, you're going to take your iron and you're going to iron those seams flat as well. Now it's time to sew together those side seams. You want to open up that bodice and then align everything until it looks even. Once everything's even, you want to pin it together and then take it over to your serger or sewing machine and sew together those side seams. If you're using a serger, make sure to take your time around that armpit area, because if you don't curve it enough, that cutter can leave a hole in your sweater. Now we're going to prepare our cuffs, neckband, and waistband. Luckily we cut everything on a fold, so we just need one seam on each cuff. I like to sew my cuffs on the outside of the sweater, so the first thing you want to do is turn your sweater right side out. Then you want to fold your sweater in half, and you're going to align that top neckline. Then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to snip that top neckline, and then you're also going to snip the bottom of the sweater. This marks the center line of your sweater. Now that our bands are sewed together, we're going to take them and we're going to fold them in half. When you fold, you want to make sure that seam we sewed is in between both sides of that folded band. After that, you're going to get your scissors and you're going to snip the unfolded side of that band. This is going to help align everything together. After that, you want to repeat that same step with your waistband and your two cuffs. Now it's time to pin your waistband onto your sweater. So the first thing you want to do is you want to pull your sweater through that waistband. You're going to align that sewn edge of the waistband to one side of the sweater, and then you want to align that snip that we did to the other side seam of the sweater. The band should be smaller than the bottom of the sweater because remember that band has stretch and the sweater does not. Now you're going to repeat the step with the cuffs and the neckband. With the cuffs, you're going to align the seam with the side seam of the shirt, and then you're going to align the snip with the other snip we made previously. On the neckband, we're going to align that seam with one of the shoulder seams, and then we're going to align that snip we made with the other shoulder seam. As you're sewing, you want to make sure you stretch that band. You want to stretch it until that band is the same size as the bottom of the sweater. As you see here, I'm aligning everything, and then as I sew, I'm stretching that band. If you're using a sewing machine on this part, you want to make sure you're using a really tight zigzag stitch. A zigzag stitch allows for that band to stretch. If you use a straight stitch, then it won't allow for your band to stretch, and then eventually your threads will break. Now you want to repeat those same steps with your neckband and your cuffs. After you sew those cuffs on, this is what the sweater looks like. You could stop here, but I'm going to go ahead and do a top stitch on that top band and the bottom band. If you want to do this step, make sure you're using a twin needle. Using a twin needle will allow for your fabric to still stretch. I get my twin needles in bulk on Amazon. I'll link them below. This is what that twin needle stitch looks like up close. And that was our last step. This is the completed sweater. This pattern is super beginner friendly. It only has about 6 pattern pieces and you can definitely finish it in a couple of hours. And then this is what the sweater looks like on my son. Please let me know below what you guys want to learn how to make next, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Bye.